Living in our quiet suburban neighborhood had always felt like a haven of tranquility, but there was one aspect that unsettled me deeply: Mr. Wilson. His house stood as a stark contrast to the well-maintained homes that lined our street. With its overgrown lawn and boarded-up windows, it seemed to exude an aura of neglect and decay. Yet, it was Mr. Wilson himself who truly sent shivers down my spine. I vividly remember the first time I laid eyes on him. I was riding my bike down the street, the sun casting long shadows on the pavement, when I noticed him standing in his front yard. His gaze followed me with an intensity that made me pedal faster, eager to escape his scrutiny. From that moment on, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was always watching, his presence looming like a dark cloud over our otherwise peaceful neighborhood. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the street lamps flickered to life, I caught a glimpse of movement in Mr. Wilson's window. I paused, my heart pounding in my chest, as I saw him peering out from behind the curtains, his eyes boring into mine with an intensity that sent a chill down my spine. I quickly averted my gaze and hurried home, the feeling of his gaze burning into my back lingering long after I had closed the door behind me. "Did you see Mr. Wilson again today?" my mom asked, her voice tinged with concern as she noticed the anxious look on my face. "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "He was just standing in his yard, staring at me. It's creepy." My mom sighed, a troubled expression crossing her features. "I know, honey. But try not to worry too much. Maybe he's just lonely or something." Lonely, I thought to myself, as I glanced back at Mr. Wilson's house, a shiver running down my spine. There was something about him that felt off, something that sent alarm bells ringing in the depths of my mind. And as the days passed and his presence continued to loom over our neighborhood like a dark shadow, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Mr. Wilson than met the eye. As the days turned into weeks, the unease I felt around Mr. Wilson only intensified. It seemed that no matter where I went or what I did, his watchful gaze followed me like a specter, casting a pall over our once serene neighborhood. I would often find myself stealing glances at his house as I walked to school or played with friends in the park. The sight of his darkened windows and unkempt yard sent a shiver down my spine, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even when I was safely indoors. One afternoon, as I rode my bike past Mr. Wilson's house, I caught sight of movement in the corner of my eye. I glanced over, my heart skipping a beat as I saw him standing in his yard, his eyes fixed on me with a chilling intensity. I quickened my pace, eager to put as much distance between us as possible, but his gaze seemed to follow me like a malevolent shadow, haunting me every step of the way. The night started like any other, with the soft glow of streetlights casting long shadows across our quiet neighborhood. But as I lay in bed, the familiar creaks and groans of the old house seemed to take on a sinister edge, and I found myself unable to shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me like a heavy fog. I had just begun to drift off to sleep when a sharp noise shattered the silence, causing me to jolt upright in bed. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of my imagination, a product of my heightened nerves, but when the noise came again, louder this time, I knew something was terribly wrong. Heart pounding, I crept out of bed and tiptoed to the window. And there, illuminated by the dim glow of the streetlight, I saw him, Mr. Wilson, his figure looming like a specter in the night, a crowbar clenched in his hand. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave as I watched him approach our house, his movements slow and deliberate. I wanted to scream, to run to my parents for help, but fear held me rooted to the spot, my voice lost in the darkness. "Mom, Dad," I finally managed to cry out, my voice hoarse with terror as I raced to their bedroom, my heart pounding in my chest like a drumbeat. "What's wrong?" my dad asked, his eyes wide with alarm as I burst into the room, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "It's Mr. Wilson," I gasped, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "He's outside, with a crowbar. He's trying to break in." Instantly, my parents were on their feet, their faces pale with fear as they rushed to the window to see for themselves. And there, in the glow of the streetlight, they saw him, Mr. Wilson, his shadowy figure lurking in the darkness like a predator on the hunt. "Call the police," my mom said, her voice trembling with fear as she dialed 911, her fingers fumbling with the buttons in her haste. As we waited for help to arrive, we huddled together in the darkness, the sound of Mr. Wilson's footsteps echoing in our ears like a death knell. And when the police finally arrived, they found him gone, vanished into the night like a wisp of smoke, leaving behind only the chilling reminder of the danger that lurked just beyond our doorstep. In the aftermath of the terrifying break-in, our once peaceful neighborhood was thrown into turmoil. The presence of Mr. Wilson, once a mere source of unease, now loomed over us like a dark cloud, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over our once serene streets. As the days passed, the police launched a full-scale investigation into Mr. Wilson's background, determined to uncover the truth behind his sinister facade. Rumors swirled through the neighborhood like wildfire, each one more unsettling than the last, as we grappled with the realization that the man who had lived among us for so long was not who he claimed to be. Then, one fateful day, the truth came to light. The police, after weeks of tireless searching, finally uncovered Mr. Wilson's true identity, and what they found sent shockwaves rippling through the community. "He's wanted for multiple crimes," my dad said, his voice grave as he sat us down at the kitchen table, the weight of the revelation heavy in the air. "Burglary, assault. He's been living a lie this whole time." I felt a chill run down my spine as my mom's hand tightened around mine, her eyes wide with horror. "But how could we have known?" she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "He seemed so normal." My parents wasted no time in taking precautions, installing security cameras and double-checking all the locks on our doors and windows. "It's like we're living in a fortress," I remarked one evening, as we sat gathered around the kitchen table, the glow of the security monitors casting eerie shadows across the room. "I know, sweetheart," my mom replied, her voice tinged with sadness as she glanced around at the fortified windows and bolted doors. "But we have to do everything we can to keep ourselves safe." As the days turned into weeks and the memory of Mr. Wilson's deception began to fade, a sense of cautious optimism settled over our once troubled neighborhood, a glimmer of hope in the darkness that had threatened to consume us. And as we forged ahead, stronger and more resilient than before, I couldn't help but wonder what other challenges lay ahead, waiting to test the bonds that held our community together.